Exactly.
But there we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Good Friday. I know you have all had your fish dinner and or are having your fish dinner. So thank you for joining us while you do that. Tonight, joining me is Jayden Kennedy, real estate extraordinaire, passionate about real estate, passionate about investing in real estate. So I'm looking forward to talking to her tonight and getting some tidbits. Of course, we'll be talking about the upcoming Let's Talk Women's Conference. But I want to turn it over to Jayden and let Jayden introduce herself to you all, like if you don't already know her. But go ahead, Jayden.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a fun initiative. But yeah, so a little bit about me. My name is Jayden. I have been a realtor for just over 4 years now. I am top 1% of realtors in all of the Greater Toronto area, which is super exciting. But I am a retired professional volleyball player turned realtor. And the reason why I got into real estate, honestly, was to help people in marginalized communities build wealth, specifically generational wealth through real estate. When I went to university, I met a lot of affluent people, and upon having conversations with them, I learned that the majority of them built their wealth through real estate. So I said, you know what? Let me get my license, let me educate myself. And then, unfortunately, in a lot of communities, we don't have someone in our household to have financial conversations with. So I said, let me get my education, and then let me use social media. I grew it significantly. I started quite small, and spread the word, educate the masses on how to get into real estate, because I feel like there's a lot of realtors on social media. They're posting the houses they just purchased, their cars, their clients' purchases, and then like the just sold signs, but they're not telling people how they got to that point. So my goal was to sort of reverse engineer everything and start from the foundation, let you know what you need to buy, how much cash, what your credit needs to look like, and all of those things, and really just help people get into the real estate market.
Well, I have to say, I follow you on Instagram and I see your videos, really informative. And I like that they're short bites of information. It's not information overload. Like you can really just grab a pen and just jot down really quickly what you're saying. I know one of the ones that you said once really got me. You said, be careful how you purchase your cars.
Yes.
Cars on, and I didn't know that.
Yes.
Cars, and I'm like, oh my God, we've got 2 cars in my driveway. Oh no.
Right?
So those little tidbits that I didn't know. But before we dive into the nitty gritty, because I really want just Jayden to talk to you all about that. I met Jayden about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I think you had just
got my license.
Got your license when we met, and she was going to sell my house. And right in the process of that, the market took a shift, like a real drastic shift. So we never did sell my house, but we remained in contact. And what I love about Jayden is her passion and her drive. And she reminds me of me. Like when we really enjoy something and are passionate about it, we give it our all, much like how I am with my women's conference and my coaching and empowering women. And Jayden has that same zeal too. She loves to empower. She's extremely supportive. I was just talking to her before we went live, and I didn't know that you didn't know this, but Jayden was the very first person I called to ask to sponsor my Let's Talk Women's Conference last year. I remember when I was a dear friend of mine had said to me, are you going to have sponsors for your conference? And I said, I don't think I need sponsors. The ticket sales will take care of the food and the venue. I'm good. And she goes, well, what about gifts? And what about giveaways? And what about incidentals? And I went, thanks. I hadn't thought about that. And I came home and I thought, I'm not good at asking. I'm great at giving. I will give the shirt off my back, but I'm not really good at asking. I didn't know what to do. And I sat on my sofa and I went, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And your name is what popped into my head.
Oh, wow.
I swear, I put together an elevator pitch. And I said, okay. I practiced it, picked up the phone and I called you and you answered.
Yes.
And I remember, I think I was halfway through my elevator pitch and you went, oh yeah, sign me up. What made you say yes so quickly?
I think so. It's first of all, you have an amazing friend. Shout out to your friend for really pushing you out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
So shout out
Thank you,
to
Natasha.
her, him. There we go. Yes, exactly. But what I would say is similar to what you said, I can tell that you're firmly rooted in your why and you're very passionate, right? I don't know if you ran events of that nature before or of that scale, but I could tell with the energy you were bringing and how passionate you were in the vision that you presented to me, and not only your vision for this one event, but potentially in the future, and your belief in God that everything would work out the way it needed to. It was for me a no-brainer. That's why halfway through I was like, you know what? I love what you're saying, what this is about, and empowering. I feel like nowadays, honestly, especially with social media, with my generation, anyways, there's not many women empowering other women,
Mhm.
right? So when you are starting a movement where you are creating a safe space and also, educating women and providing them with different resources, like that's for me, it's 100% I'm in.
Well, I tell you, it was so reassuring when you said yes so quickly that it just opened up the floodgates. I'm like, oh, that's how it goes. And so I just started calling and calling, and the rest, as they say, is history. So thank you very much. But it takes one to know another, and you have that same passion and that same zeal, and I follow you. And I'm so proud of you. I remember meeting you. I remember you being in here. I remember the conversations that we had, and I'm like, wow, look at her. And I inspire to be like that. And I hope I'm having that same effect on other women that you've had on me.
I'm sure
So,
you are 100%.
oh, yeah, praise God. And it was God who said, have a conference. And I remember thinking and saying to him, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Mm.
And look at this. We're a week away from our second conference. Again, Jayden, again, is a sponsor. So thank you for your belief in me. Thank you for your sponsorship. And just thank you for your support. I mean, always and always and always. So let's talk real estate for
Sure.
a moment. I think that the two most important questions in real estate that the average person has,
Yeah.
that knows nothing about real estate, is when to buy, when to sell. And then the
Hmm.
second question, I think, and the first question is a two-part question, and the second question, I think, is about investing in real estate. So talk about the when to buy, when to sell, and then the second about real estate. And before you even answer that, I saw this lady talking once that said she rents her condo,
Yeah.
but she has two investment properties that she owns. And someone said,
Amazing.
why would you rent at $3,000 a month when you own two properties? I don't get that. And she went on to explain that those two properties, for what she rents it out for, pays not only the mortgage for those two properties, but also her rent.
Amazing.
Building, and she's building equity. So talk about things like that. Let me leave it
For
to you.
sure. So I guess, well, I'm going to be a little here, there, everywhere, but it is all going to be coherent.
That's what we get along.
um,
That's what we get along.
but what you're sort of alluding to is there's a lot of people who rent where they want to live and buy where they can, right? Because at
Mm,
the end of the day, if I am someone, making a good income and I want to live downtown Toronto, purchasing a property downtown Toronto can be very expensive. So
mhm.
why not rent? And this is a misconception. A lot of people think that like ownership is for everyone. Like everyone should aspire to be a homeowner, and that's just not the case, right? Even
No.
as a realtor, some realtors say ownership, ownership, but there's
Yeah.
some people situations where renting just makes the most sense, right? And so, for example, if you can't afford downtown Toronto, it makes perfect sense to potentially rent out, purchase a property where you can afford, cash flow, have someone build equity in your existing properties, pay off your mortgage, and then give you some extra funds to put towards your rent. And then when you're renting, you don't have to worry about maintenance of the property, right? The windows, the roof. If something breaks
Mhm.
down, you reach out to your landlord and it's taken care of. So a lot of people do opt for renting just for this sort of simplicity of life. And that's what some of my clients are also doing. They rent over here, or they live with their friends or family, save their money, and then they purchase properties either on the outskirts of the GTA or significantly further out. For example, I have some clients buying properties in Sudbury, but believe it or not, you can buy a property in Sudbury for 400,000, have two sets of renters in there, and you're cash flowing, $1,000 a month. So There's
So
another saying.
are they renting or living here in Toronto, and then they got property out? Wow.
Exactly, exactly. But what we say in real estate is you're either purchasing for cash flow or for appreciation. Because the thing is, as house prices go up, your cash flow numbers get lower because your mortgage is going to be higher. So if you're purchasing somewhere like Sudbury, you're not really betting too much on the value of the property going up a lot over time. You're
Mhm.
betting on having that monthly cash flow. And sometimes, if my clients are looking to move into a property, there's sort of a saying, it's drive until you qualify. So I
Mhm.
typically say for every hour away from the downtown core that you drive, you're going to save around $100,000.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
So that's just sort of a thing I thought of when I was driving. So I always say that to my clients just to give perspective. But of course, if we're entering at a lower price point, the odds of that property going up in value faster than closer to the core is going to be a bit slower.
Okay.
But if we're talking about, for example, the downtown core, we have a lot of people who are considering buying investment properties right now because there's a lot of investors who are selling their properties very low because they're not cash flowing or they've had a landlord tenant board issue or something along those lines. So I do think that there is opportunity to purchase stuff downtown right now, but I personally am a big fan of multifamily. My real estate portfolio, I started 3 years ago. I purchased a duplex in Oshawa,
I remember
which
that.
was
I remember when you
super
told me that.
exciting. Yes. So the only issue with that, I'm going to be completely honest here. I purchased the property with the tenants in it. I
Mhm.
did my due diligence on the tenants, but the issue is tenants can have fake social media profiles and a lot of fake other things, right? So I ended up having a situation where I had to pay the tenants to essentially leave my property, which wasn't the most ideal, but that's why doing your due diligence is very
Mhm.
important. Having conversations with those in the neighborhood to get perspective.
Isn't it
Now,
only one of the tenants you had to pay, not both?
one. Yeah, yeah, just one.
One of them is yeah,
The
yeah,
other people were fine. Yeah.
yeah.
So I paid, got the people out, and sort of had to start from scratch. But that was a 5-figure payout. That's all I'll say. Right. So it wasn't like a little chunk change. It was a decent amount. And having been a new homeowner, that was something that was really hard for me to deal with. So I make sure that none of my clients will ever end up in a situation like that again.
So that must have been a really tough lesson to learn,
Yes.
and you probably weren't prepared for that.
Yes, yeah. And was it the thing is when you purchase a property, I always recommend like having 1% of your purchase price per year. So say you buy something for 600,000, $6,000 a year you want to put aside for emergency funds.
Oh,
So
wow.
I prematurely had to dip into my emergency fund, but I had funds on the side because I knew that if something went sideways, of course I wasn't expecting what
Yeah,
happens,
yeah.
but I did have the funds and I was able to stay afloat. And that's also the importance of having properties with multiple streams of income. Is if you're not getting income from one unit, you could still be getting unit from income from another, so that the hit isn't as hard. Because on that same token, the interest rate climate right now, we've seen
Oh my goodness.
decrease. Then we had to pause. Oh my gosh, I have variable for one of my properties, and I'm just like, whoo, Uber Eats, extra
I
$25
have a
here.
variable, and I signed my variable 2 months before everything started going down. And I have, since we bought the house in 2005, I've always been fixed, always been fixed, always been fixed, always been fixed. And anyways, I can't
Yeah,
talk about it. I went variable,
no.
and it just went down. But that property where you had to pay that tenant out, expensive lesson, probably very shocking. Would you say sitting here now that was worth it?
100%. And it's the price I had to pay. Like a saying I have is I don't take L's, I learn lessons,
Yeah.
right? And for
Yep.
me, it's like I would rather me have that experience than my tenant, but
Mhm.
or my client. But then on the other side of things, if we go to this interest rate conversation, I too purchased this property, and this was before rates were going crazy, right? So what ended up happening was I purchased, rates up. Next thing you know, I'm paying more than 2,000 a month out of pocket than I was when I had originally signed on my mortgage. Right. So this is the reality. I want people to understand variable mortgage means when there's interest rate announcements, your mortgage payments are either going up or
Or
going down. If you get a fixed rate, those people aren't impacted when we hear interest rates go up,
Mhm.
interest rates go down. So the benefit of fixed is that you know exactly what you're going to be dealing with over the term or the length of commitment with the person who's lending you your money, be it like 3 years, 5 years,
5 years,
but
10 years.
that comes at a premium for the peace of mind. So
Mhm.
some people like to gamble and do the lower rate, but then the issue is if interest rates go up, so do your monthly mortgage payments, right?
Yes. I learned that when for some reason, I wasn't able to log into my mortgage account for a while. I'm like, what's going on? I can log into all of my other accounts on at CIBC. I can't see this. And then I noticed the amount was the same. Like it wasn't changing at all. And so finally, when I was able to get in there, I didn't understand what was going on. So I walked into CIBC and I said, hey, what's going on? Like my principal is not budging. Like it's been the same for months. And he says, you have a non-amortized mortgage. I'm like, what does that mean? Because I signed up for 25 or 30 years. He said, oh, because my interest rate I'm variable. The rate had gone up way higher. I wasn't covering the payments.
The payments, yes.
The payments. So as I sit here now, the same amount of money is coming out of my bank account because I didn't increase the payments. So I now owe the bank a chunk load of money on top of the fact that nothing came off my principal in the last year or so.
Exactly. And that's a great point too, because that is a variable product where that's exactly it. If interest rates go up, you get the benefit of having your payment stay the same. But the issue is most of that payment goes to interest. And what happens, what it sounds like happened to Olu, is that there is a trigger rate. So there becomes a point where all you're doing is paying towards interest. And the bank's going to say, hey, you're only paying interest. We might be at a shortfall. You got to come up with a bit of a lump sum to make sure that we're protected. Right.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, when I go to renew or whenever, at some point they're going to come and say, okay, we're going to have to take this overflow that you owe and put it onto your mortgage.
Which isn't the most ideal, because the thing is, at the end of the day, our goal is always to retire at a certain age. And if we have a mortgage that keeps adding and adding and adding and adding, that's a debt that we're subject to for life. And as our employment situation changes and our income gets lower down the road, potentially, what's going to happen, right?
I am doing what I do with everything. I'm leaving it in God's hands because this is way beyond what I can even comprehend. So
100%.
Yeah, so that's the buying and selling part of it. And I always know there's when the interest rates go low, then everybody wants to buy.
Yeah.
And when the interest rates go low and everybody wants to buy, the buying prices go down as well.
So when interest rates are low, purchase prices go higher, and then when interest rates are higher, exactly, purchase prices go lower. So that's actually a perfect segue into property number 2. So within, I think, 1 year of buying property 1, house prices went down a lot. And my perspective is buy when others are afraid to buy, right? I think that's Warren Buffett. Someone said that.
Yeah. And even investing. Yeah, they'll say that. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. Because the thing is, there's a saying in real estate, date the rate, marry the house. Okay. The price that you pay for the property is never going to change, but the interest rate will over the life of your loan. So for me, I would rather pay $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 less and have a $200,000 lower mortgage, but temporarily pay a bit more on a monthly basis, as opposed to paying an additional $200,000, but paying less interest on that. So I came across an opportunity, a townhouse in Ajax, and it does have the potential to add another unit downstairs to have the 2 sets of income. Okay. That was all cool. Then rates kept going. They were sort of wonky. And another opportunity came across my plate. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go for it. So while interest rates were high once again, I went for another property because I knew that if this property hit the market a year from now, it's going to be worth $100,000 more. And I would rather win on the front end as opposed to waiting and go on the back end and have competition with people, right? So that was a property where we could add, once again, you have a second unit. We did a few renovations. What we actually did was the basement. It is a side split house, which means that it has multiple levels. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4 different levels. We actually took the second level and made it a part of the basement. And what this did was added living space on that floor so that whoever lives in the basement, it doesn't feel like a basement. And this enables me to charge about $400 to $500 more than typical market rent because they are getting access to an upper level. So we blocked off the upstairs and added that to the basement. But those are small ways that you can sort of add value to your property. And what I always say to my clients, which is similar to what we're discussing in terms of having a long-term perspective when it comes to purchase price and interest rate, is that I always recommend buying the worst house on the best street as opposed to the best house on the worst street. Because what's going to happen is I definitely bought the worst house, but in an amazing area, right? I'll be honest. I purchased a property for 800,000 during COVID. Neighbors were selling for around 1.2. So it's like we know that the upwards potential is there, but other properties, you do a bunch of rentals, and then all the houses around you are 50 to $100,000 less in value.
And
When
it brings
people
down the
go,
value of your house, doesn't it?
that brings down the value of your house. Exactly, right? So you do have to be strategic, but I think that those are the 2 points that I would sort of really emphasize is I personally like to purchase properties when interest rates are higher because more people are afraid to get in. This means I have more opportunities to secure my financing. I can put a home inspection stipulation in, etc. Because as you know, when we connected during COVID, people were offering on properties without seeing them, not putting
Crazy.
inspections, going into the property, realizing, oh my gosh, it's like 800 square feet. How are we going to live in here? Or, oh my gosh, there's a huge foundation issue. When it rains heavily, there's cracks in the foundation and it leaks, right? So, those are the types of things that you can put into your offer if it is a slower market, which is a buyer's market. But when it's a seller's market, you don't have as much leverage when it comes to negotiating.
I remember some of the offers that were going, I was screaming at my TV all the time. People putting in offers way above the value of the house. And I keep thinking you would never be able to refinance that house. It's never going to be valued at that. There was no conditions. There was no conditions on financing. There was no conditions on inspections. I was like, oh my goodness, what are you guys doing? And there were a lot of lawsuits after that. A
A
lot
hundred percent.
of people got sued. And
And
I was following all of that. And I was like, wow, wow, wow. I mean, that was just crazy. But that's just, okay, so that's if you want to buy for yourself, if you want to buy your residential home. But a lot of what's happening now is people are getting into investment. And we know real estate is one of the best investment tools to get into.
yeah.
So what does that market look like right now? And is it wise to team up with somebody like, siblings or parents or friends, or is it better to go on your own if you can?
Yeah, so I would say that investors, regardless of the interest rate climate, they're always looking for deals. So if the math makes sense, it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter what market you're in, it's going to work. Now, once again, I think that now is a great opportunity for investors because this whole tariff situation, it comes with its
Mm,
pros and its cons. One of the pros is that there's a lot of uncertainty, which is holding buyers back. And a
okay.
lot of sellers, I would say about 60% of sellers who are selling right now, they're not selling because they want to. They're selling because they have to. And on that token, similar to what you were saying before with lawsuits and people buying at crazy prices during COVID, you know what time it is? It's 3 to 5 years after they purchased, which means what? Mortgage renewals. And people cannot afford to renew their mortgages. So, what they would rather do is sell their property for less than what they want or even a loss, as opposed to losing their property to the bank, filing for bankruptcy, and having to start over from scratch in terms of credit.
But aren't you starting over from scratch essentially if you've got to sell your property at a loss or for lower than what you bought it for or for lower than what you expect? Now you don't have the equity to put a down
Yes.
payment on the house. So now you're back to renting?
Oh, 100%. You're essentially back to renting. If you can even afford to rent at that point, right? Because a lot of these people, they're rinsing every last penny. But for me, it's would I rather just lose all of my money and not have to deal with the bank, or deal with the bank, potentially have to file for bankruptcy, and then have all these credit issues and all of that stuff. So a lot of people are preferring to, and we got to keep in mind, Olu, if I bought for 700,000 during COVID and I sell for 700,000 today, I still have to pay realtor fees. So even if I'm selling for
You
700,
said you had a
I'm
loss.
still losing.
You had a
You're
loss.
losing at least $30,000 to $50,000 off the
Especially
bat.
especially if you are like us, you and I, with the variable rate, which means your mortgage payments were higher. Even if you sell it at 700,000, which is what you bought it for 3 to 5 years ago, you're at a loss.
100%, 100%. And on that token too, there's a lot of people who purchase properties like because prices are they're still okay. Like they're sort of creeping up. And there's a few people who secured a 5-year fixed and they want to sell right now. And the issue is the longer that you're locked into your mortgage for fixed, the bigger your mortgage penalty is going to be if you go to break the mortgage. So if we go from an investment perspective right now, if you're going to be buying with another person, you have to have real conversations, for example, about timelines. Because if, oh, your goal is to in 2 years take your equity out of the property and go buy something else on your own, we better make sure that you and I are on the same page. Not only that, you have to go to a lawyer and get a co-ownership agreement in place. This is a third-party lawyer. You should have your own individual representation, but you need to know, God forbid someone dies. What type of ownership do we have, right? Is it going to be an ownership situation where your part goes to another family member? Is it going to be potentially a situation based off how it's structured where I'm now going to be taxed, right? So you have to have these conversations to make sure that you're good, because
Hmm.
I got to be careful when I'm talking here. Me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of groups of people coming together to buy houses. That is just from what I have seen personally over the past couple of years, because people's financial situations change. Property values change. You might buy a property with 4 or 5 other people, and your realtor gives you projections. This is what the value is going to be in 5 years. And then 5 years comes, and it's not even close to the projected value. So then what are you going to do? You had other plans of allocating those funds to somewhere else 5 years down the line, but that might not actually come to fruition. And that can cause issues with the people that you bought with. If you're buying with family or friends, that could also cause an issue. So that's just my personal opinion. I've seen a lot more go sideways, but if you're going to be co-purchasing, for example, with your parents, parents are usually pretty good, especially if they're co-signing. But I just think that I love people coming together, but you just have to make sure you have the right things in place, because there's a lot of things that could go a little sideways. Even, for example, maintenance. Make sure you establish, are we going to be using a property manager? Because if not, who's going to be driving to, if you buy a property, I don't know, 2 hours from here, Jay and Olu, am I going to be putting less down? So then that means that I'm going to be the one taking care of the property, right? So there's a few variables that you do have to consider. But I do think that right now is a great opportunity for investors. I would say that one of the ways that investors can sort of increase their pre-approval is by using projected rental income. So say that the combined incomes are $100,000, you typically get approved for 4 to 5 times your income. So you might get approved for a house that's 400,000, 500,000. But if you buy a property that has multiple units, you can actually use the projected rent that's coming from the unit, add that to your income, and then get a higher pre-approval.
Okay.
So that's a way that, because house prices are so high today, right? So that's how some of my clients are
Are
getting into the
qualifying.
market, are
Okay.
qualifying, because you can use that rent. It does, for example, though, has to have a bedroom, has to have a full kitchen, has to have an egress window, has to have a separate entrance. But if it checks off all those boxes, you can leverage projected rent to increase what you're pre-approved for.
Okay, I have a question too, and I see a question here for us.
Yes.
But I just want to comment on the group investing. So I
Yes.
know like everything, there's pros and cons.
Yes.
Everything has their
Yeah.
pros and cons. I know groups where it's working for them,
Yeah.
and it's great. And so I think everything has its pros or cons. I haven't done anything yet because I'm not in that boathouse yet, that wheelhouse yet.
Yeah.
But I just want to know when I am ready, what's the best avenue to go. We have a question here from Lydia. Lydia says, my mortgage is coming due May 1st. In May. Her mortgage is coming due in May, and she has a fixed 5-year. So she's going to have to renew in May. And
Yeah.
she would like to invest in another property. What about that?
So that's actually, you said Lydia, right?
Yes.
Lydia, girl, this is the perfect time, because what's going to happen is you don't have to worry about a lot of penalties, because you're basically at the end of your term. Now, what you're going to have to consider, right? Just because you're up at the end of your term, we have to look at, do we have existing equity in our property, right? Are we taking equity out of our property in order to get a down payment for another property? If we're doing that, that might increase what your monthly mortgage payments are for your existing property. So you would want to keep that in mind just to make sure that you can stay afloat. The next thing is, you already have debt to your name by having an existing property under your name. So are we having a conversation with a mortgage professional to understand, what you would even qualify for, because we don't want to get too fancy moving money around, potentially increasing our mortgage payments, etc., if we don't know what we can qualify for. So I would say that those are two of the main things. But honestly, I have a lot of investors in your position right now who are waiting for their term to come up for renewal in order to leverage their property to purchase another one.
Yeah, I do have a few friends that are doing that. They are pulling equity out of their home, and they're buying in like Peterborough and St. Catharines, and
Yeah.
they're doing what you talked about earlier. They're buying on the outskirts. They're living in Durham, or yeah, no, I think they're all in Durham, but they're buying on the outs, and they're using equity from their home. I remember during COVID when we first met, and when houses were going for ridiculous prices. Like, remember what we could have gotten for my house?
Yeah.
And I was bumping into people, friends that I knew, that were selling their houses here in Durham, going way far out, Lindsay, and like further out, and paying for their new houses in cash based
Yes.
on what they sold their current house for. So they may be far away, like an hour or two away, but they've got no mortgage. Their house is paid
Yeah.
off, right?
Which is amazing.
Yeah,
And
and
you
so that
want
was
to
happening then. So I don't know that's happening now. I don't think the houses are that high again.
they're not that high, but you want to know who the true winners of the COVID situation is? It's the people who sold and decided to rent.
Yeah.
It's the people who sold and decided to rent because they maxed out what they ended up selling for, but then they purchased. Well, they didn't purchase, they waited until the property values went down and then they purchased. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me or if it's my service. I just see a little circle going there. Maybe I'll look at my messages here. Can you guys see me? Is it Olu that you can't see or is it me that you can't see?
Oh, there I
Oh,
am. Okay.
Olu?
I'm
Okay.
here. I don't know what happened.
Okay, you do not have a video on right now, I don't
Okay,
think.
there we go. All's good now. Can you see me?
I cannot see you. I see a black screen.
Oh, I can see you. I don't know what happened. Computer just froze. Hold on.
Okay, no worries. But yeah, if you guys have more questions, please don't hesitate to give them. What I would say right now is because home prices are still a bit lower, a lot of my clients, they are upsizing. If you are looking to upsize right now, this is the perfect opportunity. If you are downsizing, I would wait until the value of your house is a bit higher because the spread's going to be different. So if I'm selling my house for $20,000 less than what I ideally want, but I'm purchasing a significantly bigger property and getting a $60,000 difference, that discount is going to be a big difference. Whereas if I wait to sell, I'm also going to be purchasing at a higher amount, which means that my mortgage is still going to be quite big. So, just if anyone's considering selling and buying right now, if you are going to downsize, I don't think it's the time for you. If you are going to upsize, I think this is a great opportunity for you.
Wow. Thank you for that. Technology at its best, folks. My screen just went blank on me, and I don't know what happened. So I'm back now. Jayden, are you seeing and hearing me?
Yeah, I'm seeing you. I see you.
Okay, good. Yeah, something happened. So, anyways, we're back. Yeah, that's wild. You were saying before I lost you, you said, you know who's really benefiting right now? And I don't know what you said.
Oh, yes. So who's really benefiting?
Yes.
The people who sold their house at the peak and
Yeah.
either moved in with their parents or
Yeah.
rented, right? The
Yeah.
people with the long-term perspective because they knew this increase was not sustainable. So they waited, and then once prices went down and there was
They
scarcity in the
bought
market,
again.
they bought again. So those
Yeah.
are the people and those are the types of strategies I like to deploy with my clients. Are you okay with renting? Might be $2,000-$3,000 a month, giving the money to someone else, but you're going to be saving 100, 200, 300, 400,000 on your property down the line, right?
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of people, they're just so eager to transact. But if you're working with the right realtors who should be your advisors, who understand your overall plan, they should be giving you ideas like this, especially once again, if you are looking to upsize.
I have a friend who is
Yes.
a realtor. I don't know if she's a realtor anymore. She did exactly that in the heart of where what I call the real estate market being on crack, because it was
Yeah.
crazy. She sold. She
Okay.
sold for an outrageous amount, took a part of that, paid rent for a year, which was a small token of what she made.
Okay.
And then when everything calmed down, she bought again.
Shuba, genius.
I mean,
But
just brilliant.
the thing is, hindsight is always 2020,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like some people thought, no, with population growth, the only way is up, right?
Mhm.
And that's why we see some for townhouses in Whitby selling for 1.3 mil. It's like people thought that it was just going to continue going up, and unfortunately, those are the people who, like we alluded to, come renewal time, they're in a bad spot.
What goes up must come down.
Yes,
That's what I always say. And you have people that have a buyer's mentality where
yes.
they will not rent, they've got to buy, they've got to own. And then you have people that have a renter's mentality where I'm not buying, I'm not getting into the market. And I will be honest and completely transparent. Owning is really difficult.
Uh,
It's not for the faint at heart. It's really, really, really hard. The only thing that stops me from selling and renting is I am now paying somebody else's mortgage.
yes, yes,
Right.
yes, yes,
And that
yes.
gets me. That part gets me. But it really, really is difficult. So I didn't understand before people who had a renter's mentality. I didn't get it. I get it
Mm.
now. I totally get it now. You gotta know, what you're doing. You really have to speak to someone like you that knows what you're doing. Again, when I met you, 3-4 years ago, you were just new. And even then I saw your passion. So to see what you've scaled to now doesn't surprise me at all.
Thank you
But
so much.
oh no, it's true. Somebody you need to talk, and you guys can follow Jayden on Instagram. She has the best information in bite-size tidbits. It's not a half an hour long. They're like really quick, but extremely informative of what to do, how to qualify for your mortgage, the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs, the do's and the don'ts. You're really, really, really great at that. Oh my goodness. Lydia, girl, Lydia said
What's up with Lydia?
I purchased for $321 in 2011. So she purchased, I guess she purchased her property for $321,000 in 2011. It's now going for over $1 million.
That is amazing. That is so amazing.
What's
Amazing for you. I
the
love that
return
for
on
you.
that?
And that's the power of real estate, right? It's like what goes up must come down, but on average, it always goes up, right?
Mm,
As our population continues to grow and we have a housing shortage, there's no way that we can build at the speed that we need new houses to come up. So
mhm.
Lydia is a perfect example of buying a house, holding it, and then letting the market do its thing. So that's the strategy that I have. It's buy and hold, which means I'm buying the property with the plans of holding it at least 5, 10, 15
Yes.
years. Me personally, I'm probably never going to sell any of my properties. That's just
Mm.
me. We'll see what happens in the future. But that is the power of real estate and compounding, right?
Yeah.
On average, based off historical statistics, the average house in the GTA doubles every 10 years. Hold on to your property for 10 years and you're going to be making at least a few $100,000.
So when you say, I'm probably never going to sell any of my property, what's your plans for your property?
What are my plans for? Oh, just have renters right now. Right now, finally, thank you God, because the interest rates, I'm finally breaking even on my portfolio. So I'm not making money, but I'm not losing money, which is great. So for me, I have these properties, I put the down payment, but every month I'm getting about $12,000 from my renters. Don't get me wrong, my mortgages are 12,000, right? So if I don't get paid, that money's coming out of my pocket. That's not money I'm
Wow.
pocketing, but that is money going towards my mortgage. But I think what I want to highlight too, one of the unfortunate realities with real estate is that when you buy a house, the interest is front loaded, which means you pay the most interest at the beginning of the life of your loan. So when I was looking at my property, my first property, I think I said I bought for around
Mm.
875,000.
No,
I
no, that's all right.
probably put in Oshawa, I probably put, let's say, 30, 40,000 towards my mortgage, but I only put about 5 to 10,000 towards the principal paying down my property because you're always paying interest on the front end. So that's also why a lot of people would rather put a larger down payment so they're paying less interest over time. But the issue is the longer that you save your down payment, the longer it takes, house prices might be going up. So can you save faster than the rate that house prices go up in value is the real question.
Wow. Do you see, guys, what I mean when I say Jayden is your girl? So we have some more questions here. Andrea would like to know, what's
Yes.
your tip for finding a good renter? I would like to know that too, because I was thinking of converting one of the rooms in my house and renting it out because everybody's looking for a place to stay now. And I am right, you know where I live. So there's like
Yeah, yeah.
one bus that can take them right to the college,
Yeah.
right?
You're very central.
So good question, Andrea. And I'd like to know the answer to that too. What's the good tip for finding a good renter? That's hard.
For sure. So first of all, let's rewind. It comes down to where you purchase your property. If you're buying a property somewhere run down, do you think the tenant profile that you're looking for is going to want to live in that area?
Mm,
Potentially no. So you want to always have the perspective, let me buy somewhere that's fairly close to transit, that's in a decent area so I can attract my ideal tenants. So
okay.
that's the first thing. That's on the buy. Now, second, I do just want to say, Olu, with room rentals, I don't know if many realtors touch them. But that is a way, like especially in the North Oshawa area, there's a lot of student rentals. That is a great way to cash flow. There is just a bit more risk associated with it. And then, sometimes you're sharing a bathroom with someone and they're not as clean. So there's small things too that people have to consider. But when we're looking specifically talking about renters, I always tell my clients, expect to have the property empty for 3 to 4 months. Expect that. Have the savings or whatever, because here's the issue. You do not want to take someone out of desperation, get their first and last, second
And
month
that's the
in,
only money you
you're
get.
not getting money, right? Then you go to the landlord tenant board. Oh, wait, the landlord tenant board is backed up by 8 to 12 months. That means 8 to 12 months where they can live in your property without having to pay. And, some of these tenants, they don't have money. So, yeah, you go to court, you get them out, but you're not recouping those costs. So, it's better to be patient on the front end to make sure you have quality tenants. Now, what are some things that I do? I can sort of take you through a little bit of my process. Number one, we got to have credit report checks. We have to verify the employers. I always go also for any references, including employers. If Olu says that she's the founder of Let's Talk Women's Conference, that's the reference. And I go onto Olu's LinkedIn and it says janitor at XYZ. The math is not mathing, right? So I want to make sure that everyone's titles line up with everything that is being told.
Mhm.
As a realtor, I have access to a back end registry. You show me where your previous residents are, right? So if you're telling me 123 Main Street and my landlord's contact once again is Olu, I as a realtor can go on the back end, look at 123 Main Street. There's never been an Olu owning this
Mm.
property. Next thing you know, Olu's her best friend talking baloney in my ear, right? So that's something that one is a major key. There's some realtors that don't do that, but if you can cross-reference the ownership history, that sometimes gives you answers. Now, where they can get away with it sometimes is, for example, me, I don't communicate with my tenants. I have someone who communicates with them. So if a tenant is asked, who's your landlord? They might say the name of the person I have communicating with them as opposed to me. So there is a caveat sometimes.
Okay.
I also like to do Zoom calls, right? So if everything checks out, references, employment, etc., I always want to do a Zoom call with them and myself just to make sure that the vibes sort of make sense. There's also a platform called Open Room. Open Room is amazing. It actually enables landlords. I can type in Olu's name in this system, and if Olu has had issues with the landlord and the landlord knows about the platform and has put Olu's information in the
Yeah.
platform, the
They can
court order will literally be there. So I've ran into situations before where the court order is literally there when I search
a
someone's name.
copy of
So
it.
yeah. A full copy of the court order. People upload that. So you can see that. You can get an understanding. Yeah, Jayden wasn't paying rent for 6 months. This is what she said, and this is what the result was. So that's another really great resource. I would say that those are a few of the things. Of course, you want to check IDs. There's small things like if their pay stub says 123 Main Street, but their driver's license says 456 Main Street, but then their credit report says 789 Main Street, sometimes it lines up, but a lot of the time it doesn't, right? And that helps you identify little things that they've changed. I've seen a lot of fraudulent pay stubs recently, so you want to make sure that you're actually once again calling the employer, you're cross-referencing the pay stubs. It's so crazy. It's guys, this is how crazy it got. So I had two different rentals up, and I had two different realtors give me rental applications for the same people. Okay, so Jayden and Olu we'll just say Jayden. Jayden was working with two realtors, two applications, but Jayden's employment information and income information was different on both of the applications. And I'm like, what are the odds that is my two listings that this happens on? So that told me, I'm like, nah, there's some funky stuff going on right now. So those are definitely a few things I would say to pay attention to.
So I will say that I joined, there is an Ontario Tenants Facebook group.
Okay.
And these guys are knowledgeable. These are people who have been through the system and, you know, had to fight the fight. They know their stuff. You put a question in there, you got at least 30 people responding, and, the advice is the same. The information is the same. And so I find myself getting caught up in all this stuff. And I will tell you, for us that are thinking about renting and what have you, you got to do your due diligence. You've got to do your due diligence. And there's no perfect system, but the more due diligence you can do, the more safeguard you can do, the better. Andrea has another question. Andrea wants to know, is renting a property something you help your clients with?
So that is something that I help my clients with. The thing is being completely transparent. Like a lot of realtors, they just don't do rentals, period. I typically do rentals for my clients, or if someone has an investment property and they're really struggling, I'll help them. It's just that it's not like a typical, Olu, you want to buy the house. I don't need to do due diligence on you as a buyer. You have your realtor, you have your pre-approval. But with renters, it's like you have to do the calls and this. And I'm very picky, right? So 9 out of 10, maybe less, or more, are getting rejected. So it does take a lot of time. So anyways, long answer short, if you need assistance, reach out to me and I'll see what I can do for you.
Lydia says she's renting her basement.
Okay.
And that she has a girlfriend in Oshawa that rents rooms to students. So
amazing. Yeah. And I would just say,
a market for it. These poor students, I mean, not just the students, all of us. I mean, we're all just struggling to make it these days. And so there's definitely a market for students that just need a room to stay, and they're in school most of the time and what have you. So
100%. I would just say too, if you do plan on doing that specifically in Oshawa, right, because you're right by the school, they have actually implemented permit regulations. So a lot of these properties, they actually do have to be registered with the city in order to rent it out, or you can get fined. So that's just a little pointer if you do plan on buying student rental in Oshawa.
Well, we shall see. If anybody else has any more questions for Jayden, let me know as I start to wrap up. But oh my goodness, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So informative. I can't say it enough. If you have any real estate questions, Jayden is your person. Can't say it enough, can't say it enough, can't say it enough. And if you're sitting here watching us and you're going, why does she look so familiar? Is because she's like City Pulse TV. She's everywhere. Jayden is everywhere. CTV. Like she interviews everywhere because she's that knowledgeable. And people reach out to her. Like they reach out to her and say, hey, can you come and talk on CTV News? Can you come and do this segment with us? That's how knowledgeable she is. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And that's one of the reasons why I believe we connect. Because we're so passionate about what we do. And we're both in the same wheelbarrow where we are passionate about empowering women.
Exactly.
Empowering people. And the only way you can be empowered is to be informed.
Yeah.
You need to have that information. You need to know what's going on. It's ironically, and maybe not so ironically, the title of my second conference is Let's Talk About the Hidden Areas of Our Lives. And it's a matter of you cannot fix what you don't know. You can't fix what you can't see or you don't reveal. And so we're really passionate about bringing out information and making sure that you have all the information so that you can make the right decisions. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Real estate is not a one-size-fits-all. As I said earlier, you've got some people who have a renter's mentality and some who have a buying mentality. And the buyers don't want to rent and the renters don't want to buy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just the way it is. But to do any of it, to buy, to rent, to invest, you need to be informed. And there's no better person to inform you than Jayden. Thank you so much for your support of my conferences. All it takes from me to get you to do anything for me is a phone call or an email. and it's always a yes. And when you are starting out and, doing something that you never thought of doing, I never saw myself as a keynote speaker. I never saw myself as, the founder of a conference. That's just was never in my imagination at all.
Yeah.
So when you're doing something that is that scary, you need someone like Jayden backing you up and going, count me in. And you go, I haven't even finished my elevator pitch yet, and like you don't have to. I'm in. That goes such a long way to have that kind of support, to have that kind of person behind you. So I cannot thank you enough. I can't wait for one of these days when you're not super, super busy and you can actually come to one of the conferences
Yes,
and see what it's
yes.
all about. But we have the second one coming up next Saturday. I cannot believe it's next Saturday. Lord, help prepare me. But it's next Saturday. I'm super, super excited about it. I'm very excited about the women who will be there and what we're going to be pouring into them. So thank you for that support. For anybody who's listening, there's still time to get your tickets. It's next Saturday, April 26th, 9 a.m. at the Audley Recreation Center. Let's talk about the hidden areas of our lives. Andrea says, very informative. Thank you, Jayden.
Oh, you are so well. I should say, if you guys do use Instagram, you can add me on Facebook at Jayden Kennedy. But my Instagram, LinkedIn, everything is basically Jayden Kennedy Real Estate. So it's Jayden Kennedy Real Estate.
I will put that here. Let me put that in the comment section. Jayden, you know what? I have it. I can probably just copy it from Instagram and put it
No
in there.
worries.
I
But
know.
no,
Yeah,
I'm
follow her
really
on Instagram.
excited.
No, I was just telling them to follow you on Instagram because you have all those little bites. But what were you saying?
No, I'm just super excited for what the future holds. And even like you were saying, I am very protective with the brand that I built, and I don't just go on anyone's podcast or, do live. So I really believe in what you're doing, and you bring so much value and empower women. Like it's amazing. And I know that your event is going to be awesome. And if you guys, in the chat haven't got your ticket yet, get your ticket and go
Know what
see
to do.
Olu
Know
next
what to
week.
do. Know what to do. Thank you for that. Thank you, Jayden. I am so proud of you. I am so proud and honored that I get to say I knew you when. So happy to watch your progression. Wow, wow, wow. And so happy to have your love and your support. Thank you so much. Jayden Kennedy, returning sponsor of the Let's Talk Women's Conference, real estate broker extraordinaire, real estate investor, speaker, and just all around phenomenal woman. Thank you so much, Jayden.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Have a happy Easter, everybody. And for those of you that do have your tickets for the conference, I will see you next Saturday. Bye for now. Good night. Jayden, we'll talk later. Bye, hon.
Bye.